Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Your favorite time of the week. Once again, it is Thursday, 7 p.m. Central. Not really. It's actually Monday right now, but you're going to catch us on Thursday with Keepin It Rio. It's your favorite podcast, the number one rated in all the world. And of course, those are independent ratings. So they're up to, people can have their own opinions, but number one in my eyes, and that's all that matters in my eyes. So it is awesome to be here with you guys today. This is episode 240. And ladies and gentlemen, it's getting harder and harder to find amazing guests every week, but somehow I continue to do so. And this week will be no different. So without any hesitation whatsoever, I would like to welcome my guest. And I'm going to give this a shot here real quick, David, because I really don't ever read things before we start. So let's see if my reading skills are where they need to be. My guest today, ladies and gentlemen, is David Newman, CSP. David is a certified speaking professional, popular keynote speaker, and the author of the new book, Market Eminence, 22 Strategies to Build a Bold Personal Brand, Become a Business Celebrity, and Drive Unstoppable Growth. Because who doesn't love that? He works with founders, mid-market CEOs, and professional service firms who want to play bigger, grow faster, and become a category of one. And David's previous books are Do It Selling, Do It Speaking, and Do It Marketing, which is an international bestseller translated into 6 languages. And David is also the host of a globally ranked top number 1% podcast, which is something I'm interested in. And his show is The Selling Show, and he's actually got over 500 episodes. So ladies and gentlemen, please, with no further hesitation, no further nonsense from me, allow me to welcome our guest to the program, Mr. David Newman. David, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Chuck, that intro was so great. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. That was the best intro I ever had. I think we got to quit while we're ahead.
There you go. Well, we're not even close to ahead yet. We're just starting to figure it out. We're going to be so far ahead at the end of this hour that we won't have to do anything ever again. How's that sound?
I'm ready for that.
I love it. So, David, I've started 240 episodes off basically the exact same way. Well, not really, because I do know some of my guests, but the first thing I always love to ask when we get started is, hey, David, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? And then we're going to rock down this highway. This is going to be a great conversation. And here's the keys to the car, my friend.
All righty. So before entrepreneurship, I had a real job, like an honest, real, paycheck, go to an office, benefits, things like that. It was awesome. That ended in 2002. And I went on my own as an entrepreneur. I was working as a consultant and a trainer, like big corporate, working for someone else. But that was the industry I was in to begin with, is consulting and training. So the initial thought, and I'm sure many of our entrepreneurs that are watching and listening feel the same way. They say, hey, wait a minute. I know this work. I know how to do the thing. Why don't I just go out on my own and I'll make a lot more money instead of making money for these clowns? And of course, the moment that we go out as an entrepreneur, we realize the cold, harsh truth is it's no longer about doing the work. When you were getting a salary, it was about doing the work. Now, as an entrepreneur, it's about getting the work. And I will tell you, Chuck, I knew nothing about marketing, nothing about sales, nothing about selling. If there was a brick wall, if there was a dead end, if there was a manhole cover that was open in front of me, I fell into it, or I bumped into it, or I literally made every mistake in the book. I made the good ones twice. And I realized, okay, this isn't working. And then my wife and I are having these conversations early on, like, honey, when do you think you might go back and get a job? Because this entrepreneurship thing, it doesn't feel like it's for you. Meaning, like, lack of money in the bank account doesn't feel like the life that I signed up for. So I realized that I had to get serious, and I had to, study sales and marketing. I hired a sales coach. I went to classes. I read every book I could get my hands on. And I finally figured some of this out. And then I started getting contracts. I started getting leads and making sales. As I was doing this, Chuck, and I'm sure you've had this experience yourself, my peers are looking at me going, hey, hey, wait a second. How'd you do that? How'd you get in with them? How did you sign that deal for that work? And so people were starting to ask me, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I take you to lunch? Can I take you to breakfast? Can we go out for drinks? How'd you do this? How'd you land that? What price did you charge for that? Oh my God, that's what they paid you? That's insane. I've never been paid that much. So I was having a lot of breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee, etc. Good people asking good questions. And then a friend of mine who's a career coach, and we're still friends to this day, he and I are having lunch. He's asking me the same kind of questions. And he stops mid sandwich. And he says, you should do this for a living. And I said, what? I should go around and have lunch and eat sandwiches for a living? He says, no. You should.
Although that's not bad.
Although that would be a great gig. That would totally
do that sometimes.
He said, no, you should go around and teach people what you're telling me, and they'll pay you for it. And I laughed at him. Chuck, I literally laughed at him. I said, that is a ridiculous idea. Entrepreneurs as a general class are broke, like hopeless. Absolutely not. Thanks very much. Lunch is on me. I'm going back to my big corporate Fortune 500 clients. Have a nice day. He kept hounding me and chasing me to the point where I said, okay, what's the baby step? What can I do to A, make you happy, and B, shut you up? And he says, here's what I would love, he says to me. If I got a small group of entrepreneurs together, would you be willing to teach us what you know and what you've learned about marketing, sales, business development, what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you're saying, how you're saying it to get these big deals going? And I said, sure, but I'm going to have to charge you. And he says, well, how much? I said, well, we'll do it in my house. We'll do it in my living room. We'll do it for 4 weeks, and I'm going to charge you $50. He says, $50 a week? I said, no, not $50 a week. $50 for the whole thing. And then, there's going to be 4 of you, 5 of you. That's the bagel money, the coffee money, the juice money, and so on. So I literally charged each person $50 to be with me for 4 weeks. I had more fun in those 4 weeks than I ever imagined. This was back in 2008 now. And that was literally the day that I said, okay, well, this was so much fun. I mean, it was like you on your show, right? It's like, imagine if you got paid a lot of money for just talking to cool people, teaching them things, having them get excited, et cetera, et cetera. You've only done that about 240 times, so it's great. And that was the day that I turned back my big business, B2B work, and I turned up helping entrepreneurs, founders, experts, et cetera, small to medium-sized businesses with marketing and sales and so forth. So fast forward that 2008 to 2025, I've now landed on this concept of market eminence because I've written a sales book, I've written a marketing book, I've written a speaking book, taking the best of all of that into a very, very thin little volume and saying, okay, if I was starting today or restarting today, what do I wish that I knew to make a name for yourself and to float to the top of any given niche and any given market? It's really a combination of positioning, differentiation, being contrarian, and earning attention by saying what others are not willing to say and doing what others are not willing to do in the service of your clients or customers or prospects. That's last part of that's really, really important. A lot of people kind of get into the early part of the Market Eminence book and they go, wait a second. I'm just going to be saying crazy stuff for the sake of saying crazy stuff. I'm going to be, being weird and edgy and strange just for the sake of being weird, edgy, and strange, like a PR stunt or a publicity campaign. And I say, no, it is the opposite of that. It is being radically helpful and radically generous and saying what others are not willing to say, speaking the truth about your situation, about your industry, about your target market, revealing some of the myths and the truths, some of the myths and the half-truths, what's right with the world, what's wrong with the world, basically building out a manifesto and making that manifesto a living platform from which you help other people earn attention, not just gain attention, but earn attention, meaning that you genuinely deserve it for the good work that you're doing in the world, and floating to the top, in the top, what I call the top 5% of the business mavericks and the people that have genuine market eminence, where they're the ones that earn the credibility, the visibility, and the brand preference, where people show up on their doorstep pre-sold. That's a very long answer, but hey, we covered 23 years, so there it is.
Yeah, and you know what? I love that answer, because that answer sums it up right there. How do we become different from everybody in our space? How do we get recognition? Okay. And here we'll use myself as an example. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, 7th largest city in America. And David, I moved here in 2019, March of 2019 to be exact. So here's the story with how I ended up where I am. I had never been to San Antonio 1 minute in my entire life prior to the day that I got here. And what happened was, my couple buddies and I bought this roofing company that had been out of business. And because one of my consultants had worked with it previously, wanted us to go back in, and found a great deal in San Antonio, partnered up with a couple buddies. We bought this thing, and here I come, right? So I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I'm 40 years old at this point, and I have a company that is not just new, it's already failed. It's already gone out of business. So imagine, the thought process I had when it was like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to get my name out here? Number one, nobody knows me. Obviously, they don't know the company well enough because it's no longer here. So what do we do? And I'll tell you what I did. But first, I would like to ask you, as an expert, as someone that consults others such as myself, in a situation such as mine, where you are moving to a completely new place and you've got an out of business or a defunct or extinct brand, what are some of the things that I should have done? Because then I'll tell you what I did do, should have done to get myself out there.
So I think the first thing, going back to the concept of radically helpful and radically generous, one of the easiest ways to get attention, both online and offline, is to be a resource and to start sharing information about what are some of the things that are missing, funky, broken, and sad in the roofing business. What bad advice are other roofers giving to customers and prospects that's either not true, it's hyped up, overblown, unnecessary? What industry practices make you nuts that you would be, when you tell a customer, they totally resonate, they totally get excited, but if you were to say it out loud, it would make your peers nervous. You'd be like, uh-oh. It's like, you can't say that. That's like a sacred cow. That's something that, that's one of the unmentionables in the business, is that's how we operate. Does it serve customers? No. Is it current and up to date with the modern reality of what's going on? No. Is it outdated, but it still sounds like it makes sense? Yes. So literally calling out the BS, teaching, preaching, and ranting about what's really going on, what to look out for, what to get excited about. And when I say rant, it's funny. I would recommend that everyone listening and watching get comfortable with the word ranting. When I say rant, a lot of people hear that as negative, right? Start going negative on the industry, going negative on the bad practices. Ranting can also be positive. So when I say rant, you can also substitute a different word, right? So rave, teach, preach, these are all good words, right? What's right with the world? What are some of the good practices and next practices that the future holds for you, for your customers, for your prospects, for your industry? So the overall advice that if we were sitting down, you have a whiteboard or a flip chart or something like that, and we would make 2 lists, Chuck. List number 1 is, give me all the things that are missing, funky, broken, and sad about your industry, about the information about your industry, outdated practices, things that don't really serve prospects and customers, things that might actually hurt prospects and customers, overpaying for this, underpaying for that, right? Then we would have a second column. So think of that first column as that's all in red marker. And then we have a second column, it's all in green marker. And the green marker is all of the positives, right? All of the way things should be, the way things could be, the trend watching, the future pacing, helping your customers see around corners, helping them get ready for what's coming next, helping them be tapped in to the latest technologies, the latest practices, the latest advancements in your industry. And then I would say, okay, let's look at both what's the red, which are the things that we're ranting against, and what's in the green, which is the things that we're teaching and preaching and praising, if you will. And then what are the channels that your audience is paying attention to? So, for example, I talked to some business owners where they say, well, my audience doesn't really read. So I'm not going to blog. I'm not going to post articles. But man, they love video. They love video. They love podcasts. They love something that is live, interactive. They can resonate with my voice or my face. In my case, it's my voice. And right, so you're going to focus on the channels where that target market is already paying attention. And then we're going to figure out, okay, so this is what we're ranting for, ranting against. And then how can we make your company or your brand, or just you personally as the business owner, initially the face and the voice of the business, how are we going to differentiate you? So what's the positioning? What's the differentiation? What's the articulation of the distinction of how you're different? Why are you better, cooler, faster, smarter, safer? Buyer safety is another thing that comes into this. Than other competitors who either do what you do or they look like they do what you do. And that's a big asterisk.
Yes.
Because the folks that look like they do what we do are often not as smart, not as conscientious, not as experienced, don't have the level of expertise, don't have the team, don't have the tools, don't have the whatever, but they play a good game, right? They put a nice wrapper around it, beautiful website, really slick sales funnels, all of the things look good on the outside. That's who we're competing against. But when you're in this radically generous, radically helpful mode, appearances matter a lot less. That's one of the things that makes me nuts about branding and branding firms. Branding and branding firms, they want to put all this glitz, right? All of this external set dressing on top of what you're doing. The opposite of this is what I teach and preach with Market Eminence. It's not personal branding in the way that we put all kinds of set dressing on top of who you already are and what you already do. It's the opposite process. We are taking the junk out of the trunk. We are uncovering, and we are getting to a deeper level of authenticity and connection and community with the people that you want to serve. So you're being more honest, you're being more vulnerable. And frankly, the other thing that we should talk about is it's going to be polarizing. You are going to get some haters. You are going to get some people coming out of the woodwork who are critics, who don't like what you're saying, who feel threatened by it, who feel uncomfortable with it. And I had a client from New Orleans once, and I was sharing this concept with him. And he goes, oh, yeah, my grandpappy had a saying about this. And I can't do a New Orleans accent, but imagine this in a New Orleans accent. So my grandpappy said, son, you ain't somebody until somebody hates your guts. And at that point, he decided that I had arrived because, I have at least one person out there who hates my guts. But so that would be the formula that I recommend. Now I'm really dying to know, what did you do, Chuck? What did you do?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I came down here and I had literally no contacts, no friends, no family, no business, nothing. I was sitting in an empty room on the third or fourth day and wondering, what have I gotten myself into here? And I started looking at my Facebook page. Just for some reason, I just started looking at Facebook and I thought, you know what? I have all these friends on this Facebook page, and most of them are people that I know from roofing or, my cousins or random people that I've met over the years, but not everybody. A lot of them are just random people. They show up and they like something that you said and somehow they found you and they got it. So I went to the search bar on Facebook and I typed in San Antonio, Texas, And I just started friend requesting everybody that it would let me. And basically I got about 1,500 the first or second day there that accepted. 1,500 people in a day and a half accepted. So I got a little base and I started doing exactly what you just said. I would go out and I would provide a little bit of value, or I'd do a quick video and say, hey, look, here's something that we run across a lot in the field. This is a problem. This homeowner didn't even realize he was having it. So, you know, you probably don't know that you're having this issue either, but 6 out of 10 houses in San Antonio have this problem. Give us a call. And you want to know what got me my very first client? This is the craziest thing, because I never anticipated or intended it, but one of my crew members was having a birthday party. And we were brand new here in San Antonio, but I'd worked with the roofing guys for years prior in a different place. So I got invited to my crew's birthday. I just took a random selfie. I was there with my buddy and his mother. She made me a big plate, and a homeowner jumped on and said, Chuck, I saw that you were having a birthday party with your crew. And I don't know anybody that's a company owner that has that kind of relationship with their people. And you're the kind of guy I want to work with. And that stuck with me so much that that's been my focus ever since. Yeah. I want people to see the human side more than the work side. I do roofing stuff, sure, but the majority of my content is just like what we're doing here. We're having conversation. We're not talking about shingles or nails or any of that stuff. But at some point, I'm going to break a reel down out of this episode, and I'm going to send it to a homeowner. And it may be next week. It may be next month. It may be 10 years from now. But this podcast is going to help sell me a roof at some point, or it's going to help me educate somebody, because that is what I'm trying to do. And basically off of that, I made it into a whole social media persona. And now it's like, I can't get away from it, but I'm thankful I live in a time where we could get on Facebook and do that. And had it been 15 years earlier, I don't know, probably would have ended up working somewhere else and wondering what the heck I had done. But yeah, it was social media, and it was putting things on there that others weren't, trying to be a purple cow. And it was talking about stuff that other people don't like talking about. And I get in trouble with that sometimes, but for the most part, I speak the truth. So most homeowners that I'm working with realize that, and they say, you know what? I think you've got the perspective better than the other people that are saying that you're the bad guy. So that's what I did. I built it 100% off social media.
Amazing. That is such a great story. Well, and now, you know, here's the, you know, again, building it, rebuilding it, whatever people listening, whatever phase you're in, there is a lot of people feel threatened with, when it comes to content, with AI, right? Chat GPT, all these different AI tools. Who are the real voices and who are the robots? Right now, as we're recording this, and I guess for the foreseeable, at least next couple of months, there ain't no way that your voice, your expertise, your experience, your battle scars, your war stories, your unique, quirky, and I'm going to say it, weird personality, that is never going to come across in any AI-generated content. And when I say never, I mean, give me 3 months, and then after that, you're on your own. Your mileage may vary. There's no guarantees, and objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. But to be AI-proof, I think you have to be more human. You have to be more vulnerable. You have to be more authentic, more connected. You have to be more real. And if everyone else is relying on these AI tools and creating little goofy, you know, AI videos and posts that are filled with M dashes and strange syntax, because that's how AI tends to write, they can feel the difference. I'm not going to say they can see the difference, but literally people can feel the difference when it's really you. And Chuck is really Chuck on the other end of this camera. I'm really me. There's AI generated video, of course, but again, the state of the art right now, there ain't no way that it could have a conversation like this. It's like, oh, I'm just going to send my avatar. It's like, no, you're not going to send your avatar. You literally have to show up. You have to add value. You have to be helpful. You have to be generous. You have to be a resource. And there's a lot of people that are not doing that anymore, or not doing that now because they got lazy. And they're saying, well, I'm just going to have AI write my newsletter. I'm going to have AI do my show notes or my podcast or my whatever it is. I'm going to have AI write my articles and post on Facebook for me. I tune those people out because I can tell when it's AI. You can tell when it's AI. And I'm like, well, why not just put a cardboard cutout of yourself in front of the camera? You go watch football, do whatever you need to do. Everyone knows that it's a cardboard cutout, so you might as well not do it at all.
I agree. And I think that it's very problematic. And I catch myself doing it from time to time. I try very hard not to use AI for everything. But I will admit it's become very intoxicating over the last couple months when I started to realize what it could do.
Sure.
And I need to kind of steer clear because I start seeing it and I realize that doesn't even sound like me. Everything is spelled correctly. All the punctuation is correct. Like, that is not me. And anyone that knows me is going to say, wait a minute.
Right.
And so I'm very hyper aware of that. And I also realize if everybody starts using the same thing and nobody's using their actual mind and we're using an artificial mind, we're all going to end up in the same place. And how do you differentiate yourself then when the same thing is giving you, the exact same person is basically describing everybody that asks them to describe?
Yeah.
We're all going to look the same. So to me, that's concerning, but I like the fact that a lot of people in my industry are very heavily into AI because I see a lot of benefit. I use it for my company. We do a lot of, measurements and things like that off satellite imagery.
Sure.
We can put together, proposals in under a minute for 3 or 4 different roofs because it's been, we've been working on it. We put it together, but I can't imagine life. A great example. Went to McDonald's the other day. I haven't been to McDonald's in years. Do you realize that they don't even have people working at McDonald's anymore? I went inside and there were these giant kiosks and you could literally take your own order. You could pay for your own order. And then you just stood there and waited and there was nobody at the cashier stand. Basically, you're serving yourself now. And I thought, well, McDonald's probably isn't the greatest example of an awesome organic activity that we should all be doing. But the fact that it's that, or the fact that you go to Walmart and you don't have cashiers anymore, it's a little concerning, but I think the people that are willing to still use their brain and still willing to get out there, I think we're going to be okay. What do you say?
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I don't want anyone to mistake what I said a moment ago that I'm anti-AI. I think AI is amazing, hugely powerful. It should be and can be used for so many things. I think AI in the background, AI as a operating tool, AI as a brainstorming tool, AI as a sort of, supercomputer calculator at your disposal. But when you think about I want people to really vibe on this for a moment. We think that humans, have multiple intelligences. So there's people that have social intelligence. They're good with people. Mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, physical intelligence, right? They can do things with their hands. They're very handy. They can build a roof. They can replace a carburetor. They can do mechanical things. When you look at AI is one and only one type of intelligence. It is computational intelligence. It's great at pattern recognition. It is great at data and data analysis. It's great at all those things that you mentioned, analyzing satellite imagery. This is exactly 170 feet this way and, 162.3 feet this way. Incredibly powerful, magical things that it can do. I'm going to say the value and the usage of that should be 80 to 90% back office, meaning out of view. A customer, a prospect, a client does not need to see that and probably shouldn't see that. That's like, imagine if you had an entire office and it was made of glass and you see Jerry in accounting and you see the guy cleaning the toilets and it's like, that needs to happen, but it does not need to happen in a glass house. So that needs to be behind the scenes. 10 to 20% front and center, great. We have AI-driven customer service. 80% of your questions can be answered immediately on the spot using our little AI chatbot. Cool. And if your question is not in that 80%, we connect you with an operator, and now you have a human as a backup. But what we're talking about is the face and the voice of your company, right? If you're the CEO, you're a founder, you're an expert, you're a podcaster, they don't want to have an avatar of a podcast host. They don't want to have an AI written script that the podcast host is reading, or that the fake podcast host has been fed as a transcript. And I will also tell you, no matter how realistically your lips may or may not move in an AI generated video, people can tell. Now, there was some research done on this. It's so funny that we're talking about this. I just came across this research late last week. It was about AI generated images and what the audience's perception, whether it's a slide deck, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a video, what are the average person's response when they see an AI generated image in some sort of sales material, sales presentation, website, Facebook post, whatever it is. Did you know, Chuck, that 77% of people were turned off by that brand that used the obviously AI generated images? If it's really, really, really well done, which is maybe, I don't know, 1% of the time that you can't tell it's AI, but most AI images you can tell right away. Those people that saw the AI generated image on a web page, on a Facebook post, on an email that went out, 77% said, I just lost respect for them. That's a shortcut. That's cheating. That's too easy, right? They don't care anymore. They got lazy. They don't care about me, you know? And so do you want to send that message to your audience when you're putting too much AI front of the house? I think it's awesome in the back of the house. I really do. I use it multiple hours a day for all kinds of things. And when I put AI generated, so I will tell you my latest addiction. Have you heard of Sora, the video generator?
No.
Sora. So it's from OpenAI, the folks that brought you ChatGPT. You can type in text into Sora, a text prompt, and it will create a 10-second video that you just described in your prompt, and it will do it in about 90 seconds.
Nice.
It is frightening. It is incredibly fun. The results that you get are really, really good. And they did something very smart that some people originally weren't crazy about, but it ties directly into this authenticity, what's in front of your brand, etc. Every Sora video has a watermark, obvious, big. It says Sora. So if I put a Sora video out promoting my new book, for example, people are going to go, oh, David used this tool. David used AI. And it's going to be Marilyn Monroe promoting my book. I hope people understand Marilyn's dead. It's going to be Elvis promoting my book. It's going to be me and my dog in a Jaguar driving up the Pacific Coast Highway in California. I hope people know I don't drive a Jaguar E-Type from 1967. This kind of thing is fun because your audience, your prospects, they're in on the joke, right? You're not trying to pull one over on them. You're not trying to fake something that is, supposed to be really you. I brought Marilyn Monroe back from the dead so she could promote my book. People are not thinking that. They're thinking, oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's so cool. David is hip with the AI. Okay. But when I show up, when I write, when I do webinars, when I do Facebook Lives or LinkedIn Lives, it's always me. Now, I may go to AI to brainstorm ideas or topics or subtopics, but then I take it and I run with it because, again, only you have your background, your expertise, your experience, your war stories, your battle scars, the things that make you nuts, the things that make you excited, the things that bring you joy, and all of those things need to be in your content. I love what you said about, people come to you because you're a great boss. I've got friends where they generate business because people see them on Facebook being a great dad, or collecting bourbon, or going on a 50-mile bike ride. And so bringing your whole human self to the social media landscape, humanizing yourself, because you are a human, but you need to communicate that by humanizing yourself. That is a very, very powerful strategy. I think people that are reluctant to do that, like, well, what does that have to do with business? No one cares if their roofing company CEO is a good boss. No one cares if their roofing company CEO loves to go swimming at 6 a.m. in an Olympic-sized pool at the YMCA. No one wants to see the roofing CEO at his kid's baseball game. Wrong, 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 and wrong. So be more human and win more business. That's the mantra.
I agree with that 100%. And I'll tell you, we have done some crazy content over the years that has nothing to do with roofing. I named a podcast after my roofing company. I have roofing people on here all the time. And you know what? We all agree. Nobody cares about roofing. We don't talk about that. We talk about everything else that's happened in life that's gotten us to the point we're at. And to me, the coolest part of it is when someone calls the company and says, yeah, I'd like you to come out, or you show up and they start smiling and say, oh, you're the guy from the video. You're the guy that does this. I had a lady the other day that was ready for me. She said, I've been watching your videos for a year. And this was on the app called Nextdoor. I just go on there and I'll just post like a little, here, this neoprene's cracking in the sun. If you've got that on your roof, you're in danger. Give me a call, or, anything that we do. Here's a window bead. This is what the window beads do, or this is what this shingle's about. And this lady called and she says, Chuck, I want to let you know before you even get your ladder out, I have radiant barrier decking. I have got 4.5-inch pipe flashings. They're neoprene. And she was so proud of the fact that she knew all that stuff. And I thought, well, there you go, and at that point, you're no longer a commodity. You don't have to be the cheapest bidder. You don't have to be the guy that's, please, 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 please. People will call and they will ask for you specifically to come help them because they do see that you're a person. And I think it's getting lost right now on a lot of the younger generations. I think that as ChatGPT and all this becomes more and more prominent, it's going to continue to become less human here in, the real world. And I think guys like us that are just real and like to just have fun and laugh and joke with people, I think we're going to be okay. And that's been my biggest thing the last couple of years, is separating from the pack, because obviously roofing, you don't really think anything other than, I need a roofer when my roof leaks. You don't call us because you want to hang out or because we're cool. But if we can convince you that we're cool and you want to hang out with us before you call, that's a totally different game. And it's been hugely beneficial to me. I love that concept. I love marketing. I know there are so many different perspectives and different opinions on marketing in general and what works and what doesn't. And I think you and I are 100% on the same page, which kind of rolls me into the next little segment of the podcast here. When I say flip the page, we did come on here today because you've got something very big that's coming out here very soon. We spent the last 40 minutes basically talking about, marketing and how you got into this and how everything has kind of turned out the way it has in our lives. But you have a major unveiling of your new book, and you're the 40th author I've had in 240 episodes. It's, I guess, every 6th episode I have an author. And I love getting these stories behind the stories, if you will. So let's start here. I know this is your 4th book that's coming out.
Yeah.
Let's go back in history just a little bit to the very first one, because you never forget your first one. That's what everybody says, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the experience in your life, the trigger in your head that one day said, you know what, David Newman, you need to start writing books. What was the trigger for that? Everybody's got a different reason. So tell me a little bit about what your reason was.
At that point, Chuck, I was in business for 11 years. So the first couple were the disaster that we talked about. Oh, yeah. And then I studied the marketing and the sales and started kind of experimenting and tweaking and tuning and coming up with my own recipes for things. That started working. then we had that fateful conversion where my friend says, you should eat sandwiches for a living, meaning you should help other entrepreneurs do what you're doing now successfully. And then 5 years after that, so that was 2008. 5 years after that was 2013. That's when the first book came out, which was called Do It Marketing. I didn't have a big imagination because my company was called Do It Marketing. And so the first book was also called Do It Marketing.
Love it.
And I figured if I ever write a second book, I'll have to figure something out. But what I wanted to do, and this has really been a pattern, and maybe it's been a pattern in your life also. We're going through and we have a challenge or an obstacle or a problem. And we put a lot of creativity and effort and innovation and grit into solving that problem. And then that's not really good enough because that would be boring just to solve problem after problem after problem. There's going to be a third step. So have the problem, solve the problem. Part 3 is teach others. And so I needed my teach others. And so in 2012, because the book came out in 2013, in 2012, I start writing, collating, curating all my best ideas, all the rants, all the blogs, all the courses I was teaching, all the speeches I was giving. That was all the raw material. And then I went through a sort of curating, collating, and organizing process. And so I probably wrote 40% new material of things that were missing or things that I felt needed to go into that book. That was a small business marketing book. So that was for anyone that is starting or running or growing a small entrepreneurial venture. I had so much fun putting that together. And then it came out and it sold really, really well. I think you mentioned in the intro, and thank you for saying so. It was, well, first of all, it was on the Amazon bestseller list, the top 20 in its category for 39 months. 39 months.
Wow.
So it wasn't like a random Tuesday at 2 a.m. Oh, look, we hit number 1, which we did, by the way, not at 2 a.m. But I'm much more proud of the 39-month track record of being in the top 20 than I am the occasional flashes, and numerous times we hit number 1 in various categories. And then I was, that book became kind of the playbook. And I think if I was to advise anyone watching or listening, why should I write a book? The only reason, the biggest reason, the most fun reason to write a book, I think, is to find out what you think. Because until you write until it's on paper, you have a ton of ideas, you have a ton of expertise, experience, sound bites, things that people quote back to you, but it's not captured anywhere. So it's almost like writing a book was a process of capturing lightning in a bottle. All the smart things that you say on a Saturday afternoon, and someone goes, "Hey, that's really good. Is that yours?" And hopefully it is yours. And then yeah, it's mine. The things that a customer might quote back to you, the things that your team says, your team starts to repeat and quote some of your quotables. Those are the things that need to go in the book. So that was a tremendous experience. That was in 2013. And that's how it started, is really wanting to capture all of these nuggets and strategies and tips and techniques and frameworks and templates that I was sharing with clients that I'd learned myself. So solve, right? Have the problem, solve the problem, teach others. This was my greatest hits and collection of teach others.
I love it. And, it's so cool because everybody has a different reason. Everybody has a different experience. Sounds to me like you did the majority of the work on your books yourself.
Yes.
You didn't have any publishing companies. You didn't have any of that stuff. I've had people that have gone up in the woods and lived in a cabin for 2 weeks and come back with giant beard and here's a bestseller. Right. And it's always interesting. And then the one thing that always really, I've never written a book, and I keep telling myself I'm going to eventually, and hopefully I will. But the one thing that I always get from authors who have written multiple books is the first one usually ends up being the easiest. Has that been your experience with book writing as well? Was that the one where you just didn't know what to expect or what to think, so it just kind of came out, and then the second, third time, you
it's
start thinking a little bit more about it?
Like most things in my life, Chuck, I got it 100% backwards. I would say the first book was the hardest. So I went traditional publishing with my first 2 books. The third book is with a company called Amplify. And this new book, the Market Eminence book, is with a great publisher up in Canada called Page 2. But the first book was tough because, first of all, I had to get an agent. And so I asked my author buddies, hey, who's your agent? Could you team me up? Could you introduce me? And I got a fantastic introduction. The agent was like an old school, and he's still around. I probably shouldn't say this. Not that he listens to a lot of my podcasts. Sweet
probably
guy.
does listen to this one, though.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know if you heard, but we're on our way to #1. Joe Rogan is shaking right now.
There you go.
He'll probably hear you. Say something
I
nice.
Hope so. I hope so. So his name is Mike, and what I'll say to Mike is, dude, you made me write 5 versions of the book proposal, 5 iterations. So I hand in version 1. I say, here's my book proposal. I followed his template. I followed his guidelines. I followed everything. He goes, no, that's not good enough. He says, Newman, this is a marketing document. It's not a literary document. Put in more of this, less of this, take this out, change page 17. Okay. Version 2, I figure, I'm pretty good at following instructions. Version 2, hey, Mike, here you go. Here's the proposal. Nope, not good enough. You left out this, too much of that. It's like, oh my God, 5 times, Chuck. Finally, I do version 5. I'm a good student, if nothing else. He then takes version 5, turns around, and sells it in a week to the American Management Association. So that was my first publisher, American Management Association. I worked with him on the second book. The second book, I think I got in 2. I got in two rounds. So we went down from 5 rounds to 2 rounds, easier. The writing process was easier because I had my developmental editor who helps me organize and collate and sequence things. So that was the second time working with him. That was easier. And pulling the ideas together and figuring out kind of the flow was easier for the second book than the third book. I'm sorry, it was easier for the second book than the first book. The third book was even easier because now I had my chops. I kind of, I knew the drill. Interestingly, this Market Eminence book number 4, is a completely different kind of book. So there was no collating, no curating, no existing material. I had to go into here, and it's also a much shorter book. So, if you have a 250, 280 page book, you can afford to warm up. You can afford to have a couple stories that don't really land. You can afford to have a couple concepts. Yeah, I'll throw that in. Maybe it's not that great. Maybe they can use it. Maybe they can't. This thing had to be pure 100% steak. No fat, no filler, no nothing. It's designed to be read on an airplane between Chicago and Seattle. So 2-hour plane ride, 2.5-hour plane ride. You should be able to read this book and get some great ideas and start working on it. So I would say the first book was the hardest, to answer your question. 2 and 3 were easier. The second hardest book was this one because it's so condensed. It is like a flourless chocolate cake.
Nice. I love that. And it is interesting to get those different perspectives. And I would feel that I would have the same experience you did. I think my first one would be an experience, if nothing else, probably drive me crazy. And I think that after you get a little bit of repetition, you start to get better. But it's been it's been the exact opposite for most of the guests I've had that have done multiple books. So I like that. I like the fact that you like you say, just get right down to business. We're throwing fastballs from pitch 1 the way until the bottom of the 9th, and you don't have time to sit and look at too much. And I love that because it's the world we live in now. We have short attention spans. A 2-hour book, I think, is probably the perfect size in modern times. And I've got a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues, a lot of associates, a lot of people that I've just met over the years that fly a lot. I think I've been on, 500-600 flights in my life, and I play video games or read books. So the next question for you before we dive deep into this this final thing. Okay, we've got some folks watching here. You've got a very good audience that I think would be very could benefit tremendously from what you've put out here to the world in the form of your books.
Yeah.
Let's say that someone right now has been watching saying, you know, this guy Chuck's awesome. I love him, but I'm just waiting for David to tell me how I can get these books, how I can maybe get a hold of him, how I can maybe learn more from this gentleman, because I learn a lot from Chuck. He never shuts up. I want a different voice. So, David, someone wants to buy one of your previous books or even the one that's coming up, or would have any interest in maybe, you know, just a conversation, a consultation, whatever it may end up being.
Sure.
What are some of the best ways to go about finding you?
So everything that is related to the Market Eminence book, including a whole bunch of free resources, downloads, training, templates, worksheets, marketeminence.com, big surprise. Marketeminence.com is where to pick up all of the goodies related to the book. And those are free. You can get the goodies first, buy the book later, buy the book, get the goodies. You don't even need to buy the book, honestly. Just get the goodies, and that's fine too. It might whet your appetite for the book. It might not, but I'm here to give. So the bonuses are sort of a whole wonderful package unto themselves. And then for the rest of the empire, the other books, the podcast, the blog, all that good stuff, our main website is my company name, which is doitmarketing.com. I mentioned that my first book is also called doitmarketing.com because of a lack of imagination. Luckily, the book that was on speaking is called Do It Speaking. The book that is on selling is called Do It Selling. I had to break the template with this one because this one is all about breaking the template. So it couldn't really fit with the other three. But basically, doitmarketing.com is the place to get a hold of me and get a whole bunch of other things that are not necessarily related to this latest book.
I love it. And I certainly would regret later thinking about not asking about this very topic, but you've got a very successful podcast. You've done more than twice as many episodes as mine. Let me hear a little bit about the experience with the podcast, how it came about, how people can go about finding that as well, because obviously I find that incredibly interesting.
So I started the podcast in 2017. The podcast is called The Selling Show, and you can get to it just by going to thesellingshow.com. And it started out, you know, it's funny. This goes back to the early days of my entrepreneurial career. The best way to learn something is talk to other people who have figured it out. So people say, oh, David, you're so smart. You're so wonderful. You have this amazing podcast. I basically got 500 hours of free consulting. And Chuck, maybe you got, 240 hours so far.
Absolutely.
Of free consulting. So right, the best experts, I feel, are the ones that are always seeking expertise. And my definition of mastery is people who are my definition of a master is someone who is continually seeking mastery in themselves and in others. So if the world is your classroom, you need to have a podcast because the podcast is your listening booth. It's not your talking booth, right? For your guests like me that cannot shut up, I'm in the guest seat now. So I get to go and go nuts on poor Chuck here. When I'm a host, I hardly say a word. I go, oh my God, that is so cool. Can you say more about that? How does that work? And what I'm doing as a host is I'm channeling our audience. And you just drop some value bomb. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to want to know how that unfolded. They're going to want to know what technique you used to do that. And so I go in with beginner's mind. And it has been so fantastic and so impactful. Now, here's the other big confession. I myself do not listen to podcasts.
I don't either. Crazy as that
I don't
seems.
listen to my own podcast. There are people that I come across, and Chuck, I know you have got people in your world. They go, oh, Chuck, I love your show. I listen in every single week. I must have heard all of the episodes since you started. It's like, well, that's more than me. That's more than me.
Absolutely.
But then I realized back in 2017, because I was against it. I didn't want to do it. I thought I had missed the boat. No one's missed the boat. You are not your audience. So whether you love podcasts, whether you subscribe, download, you're a podcast junkie, whether you've never listened to a podcast in your life, I am telling you, there's a significant portion of your prospects, your audience, your community that you would be serving with this podcast, whether you listen to a ton of podcasts or none at all. But the lesson I had to learn to swallow my ego is I am not my audience. So just because I don't consume podcasts does not mean I shouldn't produce one. And it has been such a great way to stay connected to really cool people. It has been such a great way for me to learn. And it's been a great way to put, evergreen content out into the world, so to speak, because the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, these podcast episodes are evergreen. You will get leads, you will get thank you notes, you will get, notes and comments on episodes from last year and 2 years ago and 5 years ago, and podcasts never go away. So it has just been really game-changing for me.
As has it been for me. I don't think that I just said that correctly, but that's okay. You know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. And David, I have to thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's amazing to me that we're 56 minutes into our show. I know I told you we've got an hour. So with this last 3 minutes and 39 seconds, before I say goodbye to everybody, one thing I need to do real quick on my end is I need to give a shout out to my sponsors. Thank you to my sponsor, roofer.com. That's ROOFR. If you can't see it on my hat, here it is on my cup. And if you can't see it on my cup, it's all over the screen too. And I'll tell you real quick about Roofer, David, because I know you're probably sitting there thinking, man, that sounds awesome. What is it? Yeah. Roofer is a program. I kind of touched a little bit on it earlier. Is basically about 9 years ago, a couple roofers, buddies of mine, decided that we wasted a lot of time and they needed to come up with a way to be more efficient. And what Roofer started off as several years ago was just basically a program where you could go online and you could measure a roof off of satellite renderings, and you could have a roof measured in 2-3 minutes. You don't have to go out there. You don't have to risk your life. You don't have to fall off the roof. Well, it's continued to evolve over the years to where now Roofer, in their third full year with me as a sponsor here, have a full-blown CRM for the roofing industry, which basically takes you from the initial contact with your homeowner, QR code, you can get an instant estimate inside of 2 minutes for your roof, all the way through the process, through material ordering, through putting the crews together, through all the permitting, through every aspect of the job. At the end, we send a link and they pay the bill online. And then a year later, they get a friendly email reminder, hey, give Chuck a call because your general maintenance is due. So without Roofer, I'd have to do all that stuff. And believe me, I did it for years. It was hard. Roofer has made my life much easier. And for that, Roofer, thank you. I love you guys. So anyways, before we call it a day, David, I'd like to give you the last couple minutes here with an open floor. If you have anything that you'd like to say to the audience here before we bid adieu to them and they all go on and start buying massive copies of your book immediately, we're going to send you to number one again. What kind of parting words you got for my people?
Well, the first thing I want to say, Chuck, is that you just used like a really dirty word, permitting.
I know, especially in roofing.
Oh, no, you don't want permitting. All right, my friends, my final words of advice, and this is kind of my lifelong live with mantra, etc. It's very simple. It's 3 words. Action eliminates fear. So if you feel stuck, if you're not sure what to do, if you've been listening to Chuck's show and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know, I'm in a kind of in-between place in my business, in my career, whatever it is, take some action. Any action, small action, seemingly insignificant action, even wrong action gives you data. And then that data and that feedback guides the next action so that you can at least home in on what you need to be doing and how you need to start making some significant progress. So action eliminates fear, and I leave you with that as my encouragement and my blessing.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Like they say, just do it. That's not just a catchy slogan. It is a way of life, and it's made a lot of people happy and successful. Just do it. You'll be happy. So I do want to give a quick shout out to Jonathan Gehring, who set us up here as guest and host. Thank you, John. You're the man. I appreciate you. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I end every episode with the corniest tagline in the world. And if you would, David, stick around after I say goodbye to everybody. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know the rules by now. Keep on keeping it Rio. We will see you guys next Thursday. Thanks for watching, everyone.
We're Roofer. We know that managing a roofing business can be chaotic, so we created a single platform with all the tools you need to easily run your roofing business. Stop switching between multiple different softwares and experience streamlined operations from lead to payments in hours instead of days. Visit roofr.com to get started for free today.